So Joe Biden decided to rewrite history, and the entire media gave him a pass. Hi, thanks for watching. Today is Friday, Fact Check Friday, and I've got an easy fact check for you today. Now, there were so many things that I could fact check, especially with the debate that happened. I looked at some of the other fact checkers and what they decided to check about the debate. But there was one thing in the debate that nobody seemed to examine, and I have to wonder why. Now, if you don't know, if you haven't been with my channel for a while, I am the world's greatest fact checker, and I'm using the logic of the media fact checkers. You see, no one in the media has disputed that, so therefore it must be true. Anyway, let's get to this story today, and it deals with a claim that Joe Biden made in the last debate.
And with regard to regime change in Syria, that has not been the policy to change the regime. It has been to make sure that the regime did not wipe out hundreds and thousands of innocent people between there and the Iraqi border. And lastly,
so he just made the claim that RCW, that's what I'm calling it, RCW, was never the goal of what's happening in Syria. That was never the goal. Interesting, because that's different than how I remember it. CNN actually did a piece on this, and they talk about Gabbard and Buttigieg on U.S. and Syria regime change war. And they talk about the little back and forth that they had. But here's CNN's take. Gabbard repeatedly called for an end to the RCW in Syria and claimed U.S. policy was helping terrorist groups in the country like Al-Qaeda. Buttigieg defended America's role in the conflict, arguing that the small number of U.S. forces were all that stood between the beginning of a genocide and reemergence of ISIS. Well, that's interesting. I wonder who armed ISIS. That's an interesting question, but that's for another video. But CNN gets here and they have their facts first. And this is what I love about CNN, because they're all about the facts. The facts. The story of American involvement in Syrian civil war is complicated and difficult to assess. The U.S. military intervention in Syria has been debated since it began, but Gabbard's claim that American forces were engaged in a, quote, RCW, end quote, cuts against what U.S. officials have said about American policy in Syria. Some U.S.-backed militias have fought the Syrian government, but U.S. troops were there to help defeat ISIS. Again, who armed them? But whatever. So here CNN is talking about the facts, and they have their facts by saying, well, it's complicated, and they have unnamed U.S. officials being vague. That doesn't really seem like a fact to me. If only there were someone in the world that we could get their word on what Obama's goal was with action in Syria. If there were only a person that could speak for Obama about what he wanted to do in Syria. Well, I got someone.
My policy from the beginning has been that President Assad had lost credibility, that he attacked his own people, has killed his own people, unleashed a military against innocent civilians, and that the only way to bring stability and peace to Syria is going to be for Assad to step down and to move forward on a political transition.
Well, how about that? We found someone to speak for Obama, President Obama, and he said from the beginning his goal was to change the regime in Syria. That sounds like an RCW to me. And for Joe Biden to make the claim that that was never the goal, and for Pete Buttigieg to jump in and say a bunch of other nonsense that was not based in reality it's rich. It's really rich. But I found it really interesting that none of the fact checkers would check this fact. Hey, Joe Biden said that we were never in Syria to kick out Assad, when in fact that was the reason that the U.S. went there. Now, when something doesn't work in life, a lot of people will change the goal after it happens. So maybe you were going to run a marathon, you get tired halfway through, you stop, and you say, well, my goal was only to run half a marathon. No, you wanted to run a marathon. And like Obama said from the get-go, the goal of the United States being in Syria was to get Assad out. So that was a pretty easy fact check. If you liked this video, I ask you to share it with someone else. And if you've never shared a YouTube video, it's not that hard. There's a button. You just click on share, send it to someone that might be interested in it. That'd be awesome. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Peace.